Bill McKelvey is a senior project coordinator with the University of Missouri Extension on the Missouri Hunger Atlas, because I can't think of anything worse than being a little kid looking for food and, there's flour and there's, stuff you don't like or gross things that adults eat and kids don't eat. There's the Hunger Atlas tells us a story of how we're doing with people going hungry in Missouri. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well. We were poor when I was a kid, but we always had food, but my brothers ate it all before I got to it, so I was skinny when I was a kid. Do we have a problem with food insecurity in Missouri?
Well, I think we do. And if we look at the data from the Hunger Atlas and other sources, including USDA, we can see that rates of food insecurity both in Missouri and across the nation are on the increase in the past couple of years.
For me, my parents were too proud to get any sort of welfare. We had 6 kids, so if we didn't have something, we went without. We did get free lunches at school, but I don't recall us ever starving. You know what I mean? So with the current situation via the government with the SNAP program, how are people going hungry when they could get food stamps?
Well, couple of sort of challenges there. Not everybody who is eligible for food stamps participates in the program, and that's one of the data points that we share in the Missouri Hunger Atlas. So we actually make an estimate based on household income to try to figure out, what percentage of a population is actually eligible for a program, and then we compare that to state numbers, actual participation numbers that we get from the state of Missouri, to really kind of look at that gap. And we find that across the state, that varies quite a bit. So in some places, most of the people who are eligible do participate, but in other parts of the state, we see much lower percentages of those who are eligible participating in SNAP.
Are they worried about the application process, that it would be too invasive or too confusing, or just don't know how to do it?
So our research doesn't really get into why that is the case. Just sort of anecdotally, based on other research and reports, we know that things like stigma can play a part. So people may feel ashamed about applying for assistance. They may have difficulty completing the application. There may be transportation barriers, for example, with getting to appointments or interviews to kind of certify people. So there's a whole kind of host of challenges out there that we're aware of, but again, our Hunger Atlas doesn't really kind of try to determine exactly why folks are not participating.
So in the Hunger Atlas, which is available online, right?
That is right, yes. foodsecurity.missouri.edu is our homepage.
And do you do this every year, Bill?
We generally publish this every couple of years. Okay. So it's a pretty large undertaking. It takes quite a few hours to gather this data and request the data and analyze it. So we tend to go on an every 2 to 3 year schedule.
Okay. And then how do you factor it? Do you just go by the population? How do you know somebody's food insecure? How do you put your numbers together?
Well, there's a couple different ways that we present this information in the Hunger Atlas. So we do share USDA data for the state of Missouri, and that's collected by surveys that are conducted through the Census Bureau and the American Community Survey. So a certain number of people are surveyed in Missouri to determine their status, and then that information is then sort of extrapolated for the entire population. We also rely on data from Feeding America, which is our sort of national hub for food banking. They provide an estimate on an annual basis down to the county level that factors in things like unemployment and poverty rates to get an estimate for food insecurity.
Well, with the 114 counties, you definitely have a lot to chew on there with, pun intended, with the food interview. But, being hungry is the worst. You can't think, you get headaches, you can't do the things that need to be done around the house. There's no motivation because you're exhausted.
Well, I think that's right, and I think that's why food insecurity and hunger is such a concern, because we know that it affects people on a daily basis, but we also know that it affects things like long-term health, educational outcomes, attainment as it relates to employment, and things like that. And so it really is an issue that sort of affects all parts of a person, but then also sort of how they sort of function in society, right? And so there's many challenges there.
We're blessed in this area because we have the SEMO Food Bank, and we have, the fish pantry, the St. Mary's Church pantry. I mean, there are food pantries all over down here, and places where they just take trucks and hand out food. And oftentimes, we'll drive by and my grandson will say, they don't look like they need food. They've got a brand new car. I'm like, maybe they're picking it up for elderly neighbors or something. You can't judge the book by its cover. They may be a good Samaritan. But we are very blessed that we have these outlets down here.
Well, I agree. I think that, in the United States in general, we have efforts at the local level, like you described, to food pantries and food banks that are kind of working to make sure that people have food today. We have other public support programs like SNAP and WIC that are really intended to provide kind of more of a longer-term assistance to people. And, all combined, I think, the goal with these programs is to sort of lift people out of poverty and to lift them out of hunger, so that they can provide for themselves and their families.
So you have a thing called the Missouri Eats program?
Correct.
And what do they do?
So that is basically a community conversations program. So we work with communities through a grant, the Healthy Food Financing Initiative grant, and that enables us to go and work with communities in Missouri to help them bring people together in their community to have conversations about food, farming, hunger, health, and those types of topics, to really kind of think about, what's working in their community. So maybe there's some programs or some initiatives that are happening that really just needs more support in order to reach more people. Maybe there's gaps or challenges that a community wants to address. And so Missouri Eats helps them have those conversations, but then it provides a framework for them to put an action plan on paper so that people can begin to make progress on their most pressing issues or their most kind of low-hanging fruit, right? If they're trying to kind of take advantage of an opportunity, they can get in there and make a plan to make progress.
Yeah. And if it weren't for the stinking rabbits, I would grow a garden. I'm just telling you, I love rabbits, but every year the rabbits and squirrels just destroy it. So it's like, yeah. But we do have a small community garden. We have farmers markets. We have all sorts of, we're lucky. I'm just going to say that. But I do know we have people who are food insecure as we go farther into the boot heel. But then I think about the metro areas like St. Louis and Kansas City, and I'm sure there are areas within the counties that are within those cities where hunger can go unnoticed pretty easily.
Well, I think that's right. So hunger is not an issue that only affects people in rural places or people in our urban centers. It's really a challenge across the entire state of Missouri and really in every county.
Mm-hmm. That's why, I see a lot of, I'm sure you see it too, the panderers who are out there with their cardboard signs saying homeless, need money, I'm broke, blah, blah, blah. I saw a guy the other day that said, please don't give me money, just drive through the line at McDonald's, I need to eat. Just stuff like that. And sometimes I believe them and sometimes I don't, but when somebody is that point blank saying, I'm just hungry, I just want someone to bring me some fries, something like that, I tend to do it. So, we've got to start helping our fellow man as much as we can, but the people who are misrepresenting themselves by pandering that way are ruining for the people who really need it.
Yeah, I can't really speak to that. Your point earlier about sort of seeing somebody with a nice car at the food pantry, and making observations like that. We really never know somebody's story unless, we hear it from them. And so it's really hard to say, why people find themselves in any particular challenge.
Right. They may have just lost their job and they need some help. They still have a car, but you never know. You just never know. All right. So a lot of people have too much pride to ask for help. They feel like if I can't get it for myself, I'm not supposed to have it. And I wish they would break that mentality, because if there's anything essential in this world, it's having food.
It's right. I mean, it's a very true statement. Food is very foundational, and I think even in some of our other research projects with the Center for Food Security, we found that, people may be in need, but they oftentimes think that other people need the help more, and therefore they might limit, how much assistance they seek, right? So there is sort of a psychology to that, too, that can make it challenging for folks.
Yeah. Somebody brought up waste, fraud, and abuse within the programs, but that's not why he's here. As far as this atlas goes, I think this would be a great tool for food banks so they know where they should go.
Absolutely. We hear from the food banks, we hear from local food pantries that they use this as a tool to talk about the need in their region or in their county. Others who work in nonprofits use this as well, along with folks in state government.
Mm-hmm. It's easily accessible online if y'all want to take a look at it. If you have plenty and you want to help, we have a street-level program here in Cape where you can donate food for the homeless. They are the most food insecure people there are. It's a great tool, and I'm glad I came across it, because when I was looking at it, I was like, wow, this is incredible that you put this much work together, and it's good information about the most important thing. So give them that website once more, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure, it's foodsecurity.missouri.edu.
Okay, pretty simple stuff. Please go there. You can see where the most food insecure places are, and if you are so inclined to help, what should they do? Should they contact their local food banks and ask how they can help, or what would you suggest?
Well, at the local level, people can reach out to a local food pantry in their town or their county. The food banks that work on a more regional scale are always excited and open for volunteers. And then either of those entities, the food banks or the food pantries, accept donations of money, food, and things like that.
Yeah, don't be embarrassed if you need to eat. Get your SNAP cards and feed your family. And especially if you have children, you better be feeding those babies. And if ever, Bill, there's a zombie apocalypse, I know exactly where I'm going. I'm going to a food bank. That's where I'm going. All right.
There you go.
Bill McKelvey is the Senior Project Coordinator at University of Missouri Extension. The Missouri Hunger Atlas is available for 2025. Please check it out so you can see, and I think you'll be shocked where some of the places are that are food insecure. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.